Okay, everybody. So I haven't done this in a little while. Um, Sorry about that. I've been dreadfully busy, and then whenever I'm not busy, there might be a few times when I'm not busy and I'm just too tired to do anything. But I wanted to talk about this. I've done a video like this before. It didn't go very well. I was too tired. Today I'm feeling better. I also did another one about this story, and then I got interrupted. I like forget it. So here I'm back doing it the third time. Hopefully, third time's a charm. So I want to talk a bit about my journey from being a conspiracy theorist. So I, as a person, I try to believe. I believe in being as honest and transparent. I believe in being principled and consistent, um, fair and accurate. Those are some things I'm very serious about. I don't believe in being controversial and divisive either. Um, but I wanted to talk about the fact that I used to be a conspiracy theorist. Now, I was always a moderate person as a personality wise. I was never an extreme anything, but I did political level. And my parents are conspiracy theorists. My dad still is. He's a minister. He does fine as a minister, but he doesn't know anything about politics. So I told him, I said, Dad, just stick to the Bible. You'll be better off that way. But either way, we just have to just not talk about it because he is a big fan of Alex Jones, and right now Alex Jones is losing a lot of money to lawsuits. But anyway, so that being said, my journey from being a conspiracy theorist, which mind you, I never lived my life in a wild, crazy sort of way. Um, when I was a conspiracy theorist, I really wasn't overly involved with politics. I was largely apolitical and saw both parties as kind of being a problem. Um, but I believed in this secret cabal of rich men that are controlling the world, named the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. Both exist, but they're not quite as rich and powerful as I thought they were. Um, but it was about 2016. Trump was running for president. He was running for the Republican nomination. He was my guy because he kind of would dabble around some conspiracy theories. He went on the Alex Jones show. I was raised up listening to that. And I was like, so this is my guy. Donald Trump is, because he's talking to Alex. No one else will go talk to Alex. They're afraid to talk to Alex. Well, um, I um, I ended up supporting him through the primaries, but I didn't always like everything he said because he was very tough on immigration. I was personally not. I wasn't necessarily in favor of open borders by any means, but I was more liberal on immigration. But I was hawkish on China. I was hawkish on trade. Trade was a big problem. And he hit a lot of the right issues, and it made me really feel like he cared. Plus, he talked to the controversial people that I was raised up listening to. But going through the summer of 2020, or excuse me, 2016, I ended up listening to different people. I listened to more people. I listened to different conservatives besides Alex Jones, that people that were not necessarily Trump supporters at the time. Some of them are now. They're all behind him, but at the time they were not, and they had different perspectives and criticisms of him. And I heard them out and found their criticisms had sticking power. It was, they were correct on some things they were saying, and I had to agree that yeah, he has a problem lying. He's a bully, but I hope he becomes a bully for America. So, to help, because I felt like we were always losing. So I'm like, we want someone that'll fight for us. Yes, enthusiastic about him, but I voted for him because I'm like, I've gone this far, and I really got the feeling that he was going to lose because during October, um, so some of victims of his of sexual assault came out, And I'm like, it was so convenient. They do it before the election. He's probably going to lose. He probably did it. There's no way big powerful men like him don't do stuff like that. And that's how my perspective was. But I was also listening to Fox a lot. I was listening to Charles Krauthammer because I quit listening to Alex only. I started listening to other people. I started listening to Fox News, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, and I found them interesting. Megyn Kelly, I listened to her. I thought she was anti-Trump all day, but then when I actually started listening to her show, despite what Trump said, I found she wasn't inherently anti-Trump. She was critical of him, yes, but that was her job. She was a journalist. But I listened to Charles Krauthammer on Bill O'Reilly's program, and he wasn't a Trump supporter. He was very critical of Donald Trump, and for principled reasons. And I was like, I'm going to vote. Yeah, I think Mr. Krauthammer has a point. Also, Megyn Kelly, I got to where I was listening to her a lot. She had a high-rated show on Fox. She had averaged over 2 million viewers a night. So she did a pretty good job as a journalist. I think she was more conservative leaning, but that's fine. That doesn't bother me. She had people with different perspectives on her show. She had people that were more critical of Trump than. It says my connection is unstable. It's telling me to please wait while we try reconnecting. Oh well, I might have to go in. Anyway, so I keep while I'm headed in towards like closer to the Wi-Fi. I might have to go to my room or something. But anyway, so Charles Krauthammer was critical, but Megyn Kelly had a lot of people that were very critical of him, a lot. So I just inherently thought that she was anti-Trump. To be fair, she probably was not pro-Trump. I mean, I do sincerely believe she did not like him, but he was always attacking her and saying derogatory things, and I think some of his supporters actually got a little wild at times. Probably, people were harassing her and things like that. And sorry, I'm trying to adjust this just up. But I'm sure a lot of his supporters treated her terribly. But I did listen to her. I was like, she's probably anti-Trump, but I've got to, because I'm one of these people, I have to hear the other side. I just cannot go without it. I have to know what the opposition is saying. That way I can counter what they're saying. That way I can argue against what they're saying. But the problem is I found what they were saying to be true. Because I wasn't going to shove my head into the sand about my guy. I wanted my guy to be right. I wanted my guy to take the high road and to do the right thing. That's what I always wanted. And so I kind of got disappointed at the end of the election. I voted for him. I early voted, probably either the first day of early voting here in Tennessee or one of the first few days. It was very early on that I did in fact vote. But I was not as happy about it. I was more gung-ho in February when I first voted for him in the primaries than in October when I early voted. I wasn't so thrilled because he did lie a lot. He did lie about things that were kind of obvious. And which at the time, actually, I don't think the lies bothered me quite as much as it was just controversial statements in general. I mean, he was very harsh on immigrants, and that did, I say, lie. Let me rephrase that. I need to clarify. Really, it wasn't the lies that bothered me. The lies, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, didn't bother me as much until he was president. But he was always just bashing people, just kind of hard, just on like immigrants and stuff like that. And and kind of just didn't seem to be as friendly towards black citizens as I would have liked. Um, he was very controversial to me, and so there are a lot of things I didn't like, and but I would never call him racist or anything. I just didn't. I was like, he's got different perspectives. That don't mean he's racist. Um, but I was listening to Fox News, and there were actual reporters and journalists on Fox News that would report the truth, and that's how sometimes I would learn other things outside my own world. But then I started listening to CNN. Now, CNN, I just knew were vehemently anti-Trump. To be fair, they probably were. But they were very critical in their reporting. And I won't forget when I used to believe that elections in America were rigged, all of them. I didn't think we had a solid election since like 1984. I think that was the last election supposedly that was not rigged. And Trump started bashing, hitting the rigged election drum. And he was afraid he was going to lose, and he was saying the only way I lose is if the election is rigged, and blah blah blah. And a lot of members of the media were very concerned about that, and a lot of Democrats were concerned about that and upset and up in arms about it. And I was like, oh yeah, look, they're scared because they know that they're being called out. I mean, that's what it looked like. When you're in that bubble, you think, oh yeah, them Democrats and the media, they're running scared because he's going to reveal who they truly are. Some people to this day feel like he did just that. Millions. I know so many people that feel that way. But I was like, you know what? Since they're so, I didn't call them enemies, but since they're our staunch opposition, I got to see what they're saying because I need to counteract what these people are saying. I need to be able to argue against people, to be able to show people like, hey, what you're hearing is wrong. This is not true. Because I was really out to make the world a better place. I was out to unify the world or to unify the country. It's like, we need this. We need to pull together. And I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to do whatever it takes to pull Democrats on board with us because we need to work together no matter what. I was like, I don't trust politicians, but I trust the people. Even if they vote for Democrat, I'm going to look beyond that, and we're going to pull together. And Trump can be the man to do it. Despite the fact that he bullied, I still felt like he had the ability to unify people because I thought, he could just drop that reality TV show persona any day and just kind of become a better version of himself. And actually people in the mainstream media speculated that would happen. Like not a bunch, but some people, like I think maybe Chuck Todd, maybe Dana Bash of CNN, Chuck Todd's of NBC to clarify. And it seemed like, he probably would, once he becomes president, he'll probably stop a lot of this. It's performative art. He's an entertainer. But he's very dangerous calling the American elections rigged. So that's very sketchy and stuff. And so I was listening to Alex Jones a lot. I was listening to Fox News. Well, one of the first things that started to de-radicalize me was the election itself. So I'm like, yeah, we'll probably watch the election go towards Clinton. But at the same time, though, I was listening to coverage like on Megyn Kelly's show. And I would learn some of the most on Megyn Kelly. And I would listen to election experts that Fox had, and they were, I believe, they were really good people. There were also some political strategists for the parties. And they were talking about how Trump would probably, according to the polling, would probably be losing because he was running such a roughshod campaign. It was just kind of it was not very well organized. It was just kind of haphazard. And they're talking about how Obama trounced Romney so bad in 2012 because his ground game was organized. All of his
campaign offices were well staffed, and they had activists on the ground getting people to the polls, campaigning for Obama and Democrats, and how Romney was a little bit behind on that because he just knew people are going to just vote for Romney, and people are just going to vote for me. Things are so bad, there's no way he gets reelected. And Obama realized that things looked bad for him. He understood that. He's like, look, this is a Republican. This is an election for the Republicans. It's theirs to lose, and I've got to do something to win. I've got to work hard, and so he did. Democrats kicked into gear, and they won re-election because they worked so hard. Romney was very complacent. He didn't go to talk to the media. He didn't organize on the ground as much. He did some campaign stops. Excuse me. Sorry about that. He did some rallies and things, but Trump also wasn't doing very good at organizing on the ground. He kind of had, from what I understand, a somewhat very thin crew all through the swing states. But what was different though was he was always before the cameras. He was always campaigning. He never shut up. He was always talking, always campaigning. And Kellyanne Conway did a good job helping him stay disciplined, so to speak, and that actually ended up helping him. But we didn't realize that was going to help him so much at the time. And so the polling looked abysmal for him, and all the wrong places, all the right places, were going, showing what Clinton had a lead. And these Republican and Democratic strategists were talking about, the counties he needed to go to turn out his voters. And they're talking about how Obama did it. Obama knew the right counties to go to. Obama, his team understood the communities that would support him, and they got their voters out. And how Trump is not doing that. He's just kind of winging it. He's kind of an amateur. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so he's likely not going to win because Clinton is following the Obama playbook. They're organized, this and that, whatever. It didn't work for Clinton. And in fact, Trump won. And it was the same media that predicted he would lose with their same polls that he ended up proving wrong. And they ate a lot of crow for a few days. A lot. And during that time period, I thought, I'm going to listen to what they've got to say even more. I put CNN and NBC on my phone and things like that to just hear what they had to say. And it come pretty clear pretty quick that, according to many U.S. intelligence agencies, that the Russians, they had interfered through social media. Not that they're actually going into voting machines and switching votes from one candidate to the other, but more or less they're switching, like they're changing people's minds on social media with lies and campaigns, which was unprecedented at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, they're just upset that Trump won. They're trying to delegitimize his win. That's what I thought. But I kept listening. I'm like, I got to hear what they're saying. I need to stay abreast with what they're saying because I need to be able to counter this. I don't need people to getting distracted. But there was a shooting that happened at Comet Pizza in D.C. And I remember hearing when Alex Jones was going on about the spirit cooking stuff. Well, that's what that came from. Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. was the subject of that supposed report that Alex had. Well, a very distraught father who was not crazy. He was radicalized because he believed what Alex was saying was true. But Alex was saying that there was human trafficking of little children going on in the basement of the Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. And they had the secret basement and stuff, and that the pizza parlor was just a cover for what they were doing. And they're talking about these scandalous John Podesta emails where they're talking about ordering a cheese pizza, and they really meant child pornography and stuff. I'm like, they really conjuring up some very far-fetched ideas that turns out they were actually talking about cheese pizza. They were actually ordering from Comet Pizza or something. They're actually ordering food. They weren't having anything to do with kids. There were no kids there. And that distraught father. Oh, first though, there was this right wing and social media influencer that went in there and he confronted them owners about what's going on in their basement, and they're like, well, we don't know what you're talking about. And they basically kicked him out. And he's like, see, they're intimidated by us. Well, the guy was just a fraud. He was just being stupid. But this father saw that. There's father from North Carolina, and bless his heart, God love him. He was totally sincere. He really was coming from the heart, and he took a gun into Comet Pizza and shot that place up. Now, fortunately, no one was dead, and he was surprised that there wasn't a basement there. Alex and some of these other people had been saying that there's a basement at Comet Pizza. It didn't exist. It was never there. And so he was surprised by that. And I think it probably felt stupid and manipulated and used. But he was like, he made a video of himself driving up there. He was crying at some point in time. He'd tell his kids, I'm doing this for you and for all those other kids that are suffering. I mean, I would want a father like that jump into my rescue if I were in a kid's position. I mean, it was such a noble thing. It really was touching. It's just sad that he was manipulated into believing that existed, because that does exist. That does happen. It just wasn't there at Comet Pizza, and it wasn't those people. They're not affiliated, as far as we know, with any child or human trafficking. Those people are way more shrewd than just having a pizza parlor. And so it kind of ruined his life, I believe, and he completely was sincere about it. I mean, if I could meet that guy, I would just go give him a hug, like, thanks for trying. You shot in the wrong direction. You shot at the wrong place, but it's going on somewhere. Maybe you should be on the hunt for it. Not well, I say that. That's really best left for law enforcement professionals. Dads might get emotional, probably need to stay out of that. They don't have the legal authority to do that stuff. But anyway, so when that happened, though, and I heard how wrong Alex was, I really lost a lot of confidence in what he was saying. And the media, and like Megyn Kelly, for example, was reporting on that. And they were talking about how crazy that was. And that's, I think, the last moment that I ever believed in conspiracy theories. I still believed that at the time that the media was just liberal and biased to the left, and it was just going to be against Trump no matter what. But the more I kept listening, I actually learned a lot, and I found like another one that really had a big impact was Brian Stelter of CNN. I listened to reliable sources a lot. He was under attack from some Republicans from time to time for sharp criticism of them. But I listened to him, like, I was kind of impressed with how he would have some people on his show. Like, for example, he had, what's her name? Katrina Pearson on his program during the campaign of 2016. And she got all up in his face, not in his face, not physically in his face, but like all up in his stuff about fact checking, because he was kind of drilling her a little bit about Trump's lies. And she's like going on and on about Clinton and how CNN might probably got some Clinton stories wrong. Because if you remember, she was under investigation at the time for her emails. And he was talking about, she was talking about, did you fact check this? Did you fact check that? And he was saying, like, yes, I agree. We need to do more fact checking. I agree with you 100%, but you're not answering what you're getting wrong. I mean, we will make ourselves right. He wasn't literally saying that, but in so many words, while trying to hold her accountable for what her candidate was saying, he did try to defend himself and clarify, like, yes, we should be accurate and fair always. And I was like, that's different, because he didn't like get emotional back with her. He didn't get all offended with her. He was very classy. And whenever I saw him get attacked, he always handled it in a respectful way and more or less moved to de-escalate the situation and to be respectful. And that really stuck with me. I'm like, so this liberal lunatic is actually not acting like a lunatic. He's actually acting totally rational. And when I actually started listening to him, and then Jake Tapper was another one. Jake Tapper, I saw him grill Democrats in ways that I didn't think CNN did. I was like, wait, CNN asks questions like that? I thought they were just like going to give Democrats a pass on everything. No, Hillary Clinton had a rough ride on CNN. And I started learning a lot about Clinton stuff through CNN. And when I started listening to more CNN, they were very critical of Trump because he's always running his mouth. He's always doing something. In the beginning, it was more running his mouth and stuff. Near the end, it got a little more dangerous than that. But I started listening to CNN more and more, and they were critical of Democrats on a number of things. And I was like, that's not what I expected. I didn't expect them to be critical of Democrats. I thought they just kind of covered up what Democrats did. And in fact, they were better at criticizing Democrats than I was because, number one, they really knew what they were talking about, and they knew how to get in the Democrats' stuff. They knew how to back them down. They knew how to shut them up and to, make them reconsider what they're doing or something. And I was like, wait, CNN is actually better at handling this than like even Fox News. Like if Sean Hannity is to hold a Democrat accountable, he sounds kind of silly because that Democrat can throw back, what's going on with his candidates, so it just ends up being a tit for tat stupid argument. When CNN did it, Democrats could not argue with them. They were like, they kind of have to tuck their tails and be humble about it. Like, yes, sir, we understand. And I was like, wait, that happened? I was like, I didn't know that ever happened. So when I started realizing how critical CNN could be of Democrats and the left, I was like, that's weird because, there was a lot of time when they were very critical of Trump. And people also say this. They say that Russia reported that Trump colluded with CNN. That never happened, ever. They talked about Russia and they talked about Trump a lot. And they talked about the investigation into him to find out whether he did collude with Russia. And there's not really enough evidence to prove that he did. There's evidence he had ties with them and probably some relationships with them and meetings with them, but it didn't necessarily break the law. It might have been kind of sketchy, but sketchy does not always mean illegal. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. But anyway, so I found that CNN was a whole lot more critical of Democrats. And I got to see it during the Harvey Weinstein coverage because Harvey Weinstein was a big Democratic donor, and the Obamas and the Clintons got their legs striped on CNN about taking money from him and about whether they were going to give their money back. And because they were taking their time coming out and condemning him and stuff, I guess kind of dragging their feet, especially after Obama and Clinton had championed women's rights and stuff. And CNN striped them. It wasn't the Republicans that had ugly coverage during that time period. It was the Democrats that did. Democrats looked bad. And there's a lot more to say. I probably need to talk about it more like in a podcast with another person. But that's when I started. And Jake Tapper was a very fair, even-handed person. When I was really glad I gave them a fair hearing. Like, all you have to do is give them a fair hearing. You'll find you agree with them on a lot more than what you realize. You're not always going to agree with how they cover things. And for me, I didn't like how Jeff Zucker ran CNN because he did turn it more partisan. It was kind of more of an anti-Trump network under him. Whereas like CBS, NBC, ABC, NPR, they were not so much. It's likely their journalists did not vote for him, but they weren't like grandstanding against him like Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon were. and some others probably if I get to thinking about it. But Jake Tapper always came across as straight, just all the way, just down the middle, straight. And I recommend listening to Jake Tapper, and I also recommend listening to Brian Stelter. Um, they helped me a lot, and I'm going to tell you, if you are a conservative, it's not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt you one bit. They're not going to turn you into some radical leftist because I'm not. I feel like I'm just a more informed citizen. And after listening to them, I really don't feel partisan. I've learned a thing about fairness. I've learned about accuracy. And they have helped make me a better person, which I was raised to have a fairly high moral standard, but they help tweak it. They help me in a lot of ways. They're very thick skinned. Jake Tapper and a lot of those guys have thicker skin than what you might expect. They can handle quite a lot. But anyway, so this is all for now. I'm going to shut this down and post this. I love all of y'all. I know I've rambled on for 31 minutes, but I hope to see y'all soon.